when I click on there?
Says live.
Says we're live. Nothing. You know, I'm not a Leo. Not that I believe very much in horoscopes, but I do find something interesting about it. Just human nature. But I do have a Leo rising, apparently. And we like the spotlight.
Sure enough, and I'm a Gemini, so that's like the other the other half of me.
I
So
always forget. That's how we started this, because it was like two Geminis. Like, we just can go back and forth and do all this stuff.
yeah.
So it says we're live. I'm assuming that if you go onto my YouTube channel right now, that this stuff is going to pop up. I mean, who knows? So we can just get started and see what happens. I know it's recorded, and we're just kind of doing this as we go. There's no pressure. It's just two Geminis, so there's actually four of us that have a lot to talk about.
Heck yeah.
So let's get cracking, because to me, and I remember I always say that, let's get cracking. I don't even know what that stupid shit means. I say a lot of shit that doesn't, I don't even know what it means. So just, I know. Like, what does that even mean? Let's get crack-a-lackin'? Like, seriously?
I was going to say, that's some real down south.
That's what I'm thinking. So I'm just thinking, like, I told somebody once, like, I'm not a Bible banger or anything, and they're like, what? And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Sorry. I don't know what that means. So just know that that's me.
That's too funny.
I say a lot of shit, and it has my own meaning, which brings us to, our topic today, which actually is the ego. And Mel, you do this beautifully, because you just said it before. How did we even come about? How did this happen that we're deciding we're going to talk about ego?
So, well, the beauty of last week's discussion was kind of tapping into self-confidence and rebuilding that, and where integrity and all those things stem from. And that's the positive side of it. And so on the flip side, this weekend some events occurred, and so I texted you on Sunday and I said, Hera, we got to talk about ego. I saw a few different things that happened, and some choices that were made, and I said, there's something going on that's stemming from ego. And once as I text you, you're like, there's our topic. That's what we got to talk about. And so I can go right into exactly what happened, and I'm sure there's a lot of ways that people will be able to relate to this, and we can just kind of go from there. But so this weekend, I went out, had a great evening, and in the close of my evening, I said, you know what, let me just go ahead and grab some good old-fashioned Waffle House, right? And so, it's that late-night craving. It's the only thing that's open. And I said, all right, I'm going to stop in there. And, I wasn't ready to go home. I wanted to kind of just calm down, because earlier that evening, as I was out at an event, I noticed that I was kind of getting some negative energy coming at me. It felt like people were not seeing me per se, and that my ego started showing up, and so I got a little frustrated when I tried to order something to eat, when I tried to order something to drink, when I tried to ask for water, what have you. I noticed that I wasn't getting the response that I thought I should be receiving, and so, do you know who I am? That kind of ego was taken over. And ego can be a good thing. Ego can be a great thing. Or ego can be a very bad thing or negative thing. And it's all in a matter of, how it shows up in your life. And so when I got to a good old Waffle House, I won't say which one, I sat there for a while, and no one served me. No one said hello. No one asked me how my evening was going. Everyone just kind of kept doing their thing, and there was a celebrity that was over in the corner, and basically, all the attention was over on that person. And so I started getting frustrated because now it's 5 minutes going by, and you know me, I don't like waiting. My tolerance level goes even lower. So I said, okay, now I'm starving, I'm hungry. Right. I'm like, we don't do lines, we don't do any of that, right? But so so I said, all right, 5 minutes went by, 10 minutes goes by. Now we're starting to lean towards 15, and I'm really frustrated. Okay?
And you're like timing this shit.
And I'm timing it. Oh yeah, I'm watching every movement. I'm watching what everybody's doing, what everybody's saying, how many times they've walked past me, how many times I've, kind of gestured at them, saying excuse me, and got no attention. And so that ego is just getting fired up. And so finally this guy comes over, and he looked like he was pretty new. And, he was kind of shuffling around like, I'm sorry, sir, can I help you, what have you? And I said, absolutely. Wow. Thank you for being the one person that stopped, the one person that gave me some attention. And he ended up, getting my service, getting my order placed. And finally, at the end of the night, I wanted to prove myself or prove something, so I left him a pretty hefty big tip. All right, and I wanted it to be shown so that everyone else that ignored, was able to see, wow, geez, why did we ignore that guy? Here it is, this other person only gave us a couple of bucks, and that guy over there that we didn't even expect, left this guy, enough money to pay a bill, and so that's really where it kind of stemmed from. So when I woke up Sunday morning, I was so disappointed in myself. And I was like, where did that come from? Where did that ego stem from? What's going on that I am repelling, or that I am feeling lack, or one of the things that we said, a need to prove, or not feeling good enough, or what have you, and really what was happening, that I was just repelling abundance as opposed to just repelling abundance and stemming from lack. And so that's when I text you and I said, we got to talk about this, because there's a lot of principles that I certainly know and I've certainly been developing and growing through, but it showed its face for a reason, and so that's where we came to tonight.
And I'm putting in our university page just live, so if anybody wants to pop on to our ego talk, we can do that. And I'll tell you one thing that I guess I enjoy, and it's because it's part of my journey, so I'm very aware of it, and that's that self-talk. And it's so very easy for us. Like, a lot of my clients will hear me all the time say, when I have spinach in my teeth, I could feel it. It's a little uncomfortable, but I can't see it. Like, can you check this for me? Or I have to go and look in a mirror and be held up to that mirror. So that, to me, my journey with ego, and when it comes down to, I want to kind of like break this down, but my journey with ego was just that. Like, it causes suffering. Yeah. It really, really does. So part of my journey became listening to that self-talk and being the observer. And a lot of that does come with the yoga practice, right? Is that I have my Yoga Gangsters t-shirt on. I'm a yoga gangster. And now I believe they've actually changed their name now to Connection is the Cure, the Connection Coalition. Just forgive me. Another thing a lot of people will notice about me is it takes me like 17 times to remember the name of anything. So not really sure about that. But it's just, I don't know, maybe it's a Gemini thing, but right. It was Sunday, and Mel and I, usually we do connect via text message on Sundays. Yeah. It's a day we're going to church, we're getting good messages, all this stuff is happening, and I get this long text message from my Gemini friend.
I write essays, you guys. I literally write books. Right.
This is confidential information here, but we're making it not so confidential. But he said, let's talk about ego at some point, he said, because I felt it kick in. Yeah. Which, first and foremost, I need us to stop right there and realize that we're talking to two individuals right here that listen to that self-talk. Yeah. We're paying attention to or reflecting upon the things that occurred or are occurring, and we're going to give you just a little steps at the end on how to kind of like kill your ego, but not violently. I mean, we don't have to be violent about it, But taking into consideration, you know, some of the words that I heard you say, and I first and foremost have to give you props and kudos for even putting that stuff out there or just expressing it to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, and saying, wow, this shit happened to me. Like, can we just get real about this? That's a huge sign of an evolved person, in my opinion. A person who wants to grow, who wants to become the best that they can, and also a person that, you know, a lot of times when we want to improve ourselves, it's so we can give back to others.
Yes.
The things that we do within Team Powerhouse are constantly to be growing ourselves so we can show up fully and selflessly in the lives of others. And that's a journey that Mel and I are on. And this is part of that journey, is just that going back and forth, which is one of the reasons we decided to just do these talks, because there's so much information when we get on the phone. It's like, how can we even keep this to ourselves? So let's even go back to the words that I hear when we talk about ego, because this is something that we discussed, that when it comes to ego, right? What is ego? And if you're listening or if you're watching the recording, I even want you to stop and think, where has your ego showed up in life, in your life? And, you know, we have those words like fear-based, protection. I think Mel had mentioned I'll let you share your words later just to make sure that I reel it all in. But I had said it's about identity, right? And who you are. And I heard you say they're not seeing me. So look at that right there, right? I like to take a lot of the things that I struggle with in life and turn them into cartoon characters. So when I struggle with this ego, I turn it into a cartoon character. And I imagine this, like, actually my ego is like this really small little round blue dude. His hands are always like this, or sometimes they're going like this.
Yeah.
And when you say, like, and they're not seeing me, my visual, I'm very visual and also auditory. That's where the ears are so big. Look how big my ears are. They take up like half the screen.
I remember
the visual is like, motherfuckers, you're not seeing me. You're not seeing me. I'm here. I'm here. So when you gave me this beautiful text message and this, like, yo, I want to be a better me, like, blah, here's what happens. My response was ego. I see this little blue dude, like, flipping out. And it was also a message that I got that day in church. So a lot of it was, you know, what I had said to you was, listen, ego is something that destroys us by limiting us. And that was my first response, and my first definition is that ego is something that will destroy you because it limits you. And I am a firm believer that when we have that fear-based thinking and those thoughts that separate you, that you want to identify with who you are and what you should receive, that's going to separate us from the other individual or individuals. That's going to, as you said, that word lack, you're creating that lack, right? Why is it all going over there and none of it's to me? That's going to put up that armor, and that's going to create a wall and isolate you to a certain extent, right? And this, I mean, this is some figurative language, whatever the word is. Figurative language, I believe, is correct, right? An armor is figurative. My dad's an English teacher. I should know this stuff. I was terrible. What'd you say?
That's a figurative. That was a good one, though. That was all right.
Sometimes I do this stuff good. So I have that. That was a strategy for me, is to turn these things that I struggle with into, you know, something funny, that I'm not looking at it so much as like, it's like, okay, this ego. You know, it's this need for me, and where ego showed up for me was the need to be right. And when I struggled with it most was in my romantic relationships and arguments, you know, years ago. And listen, I mean, at this point in my relationship right now, I would have to say, do we have arguments, like discussions? Of course we do. If you are a couple that does not, let me live with you for 7 days. 7 days. Because something's got to come up at some point. But I think the couples that don't are really well matched, and also they don't let that ego get to them to where it's like I don't need to be right. So I think what I had said to you when it came to ego destroying us by limiting us, and here's my key word to me. And there's a girl that always says to me, like, the words that you put in caps, like, how do you decide what words you put in caps? And the word that I put in caps here was ego destroys us because it limits us, which I think that was just a typo, but I used the word our assumptions from our limited perspective. And that's where I'm going to let you take it away, because after I had said that, and maybe this needs to be our next talk, and you said something that ties in. You got me when I said our limited perspective, because your response was ego stands for erasing God out.
Yep, absolutely.
And I'm going to say one more thing, and then it's all yours because I've said a lot. But when I learned, what did that timer mean?
I know.
What did that timer mean?
Well, that's a 15, but it's all right.
That timer means that we're going to wrap this up, apparently. Erasing God out to me from our limited perspective, you know, like a lot of times, again, when I have to have that self-talk, I always hear God saying, and it's somewhere in the Bible, and don't ask me now because now I'm focused on, let's get done. But somewhere in the Bible, maybe it's Job, maybe it's Isaiah, maybe it's something with an I, where he says, or Jonah, you know, you weren't there when I created the world. So you don't know why I did everything that I did. And that to me is just so humbling, to where it's like, you know, I'm in the Waffle House and all this stuff is going on and I'm not getting served. And every time we hear that word I. Or my, or me, we have to think it's just our limited perspective. So talk to me a little bit about that, you know, erasing God out and ego, and what's ego to you, and where have you seen it, you know, aside from that? I mean, you said where it shows up, but dish it.
So, yeah, so, you know, when I text you back, erasing God out, what I essentially was saying is that I am disconnected at this moment from my source. I am disconnected from my higher power, from what I know to be right, what I know needs to be done and should be. I'm disconnected. And we go through those moments where maybe it's not a long period of time, but maybe it's just one of those incidents where we have to catch ourselves and say, wait a second, where is this stemming from, and why is it stemming from that? And I had to kind of just backtrack, and what I did was I just kind of wrote down 3 ways that it shows up. And I remember listening to one of my other coaches, and there were several different ways that he gave me, but there were 3 that just kind of stood out to me the most. And the first one was, ego really shows up anytime you're pursuing your goals or your intentions to just be good enough. All right? And it was interesting because he said, you're already good enough. And if you're connected with your source, you understand the value that you bring. You understand the human being that he created you into. You understand all of the different things that you bring to this universe and to this world. So good enough is already here. It's now a matter of how do you excel, and understanding that that's just being okay and understanding who you are. The second thing that he said was, anytime ego shows up, or ego shows up anytime when you are easily offended, okay? Because like attracts like. So if you're feeling offended, you're going to be offended. And I had to realize that because that's what was happening last, you know, the evening, Saturday evening as well. And the third thing that he brought up was that if you feel that your way is the only way, or it's the highway. So to hear you say that was something that was a challenge is exactly what I understood it to be in myself as well, because I've dealt with that in relationships where, listen, this is what it is. You know, what I say goes, and that's that. And I had to really kind of break down and see where all these things were showing up in my life, where that was stemming from and why it was stemming from. And some of the words that I used were kind of similar. You know, you wrote down fear-based, and it's like it happened again. I wrote down fear-based. Obligation, you know, feeling obligated to prove, that need to prove. You know, and it's understanding you have no one to prove anything to. And I know it's almost like it contradicts what confidence is, because confidence is, you know, proving and going out for a goal and proving that you did it, you reached that goal, and that's where the good side of ego does come from. But it's when you're using that in a negative way, and understanding that you now have to prove when you're in those kinds of situations who you are, what you should feel, your identity, or that limited belief that you have. And the last thing that he said to me is that, you know, when we're stemming from ego and that conditioned mind, we are repelling abundance. And that's when I knew that I was dealing with lack, because I said that to you. I mean, I was on it, and I said, oh my gosh, like, here it is. I could have gotten so much love, appreciation. I could have had discussions. I could have met people. All of that is abundance, not just wealth, not just monetary abundance, but abundance in relationships, abundance in experiences, all those things. And you're repelling that, or creating that barrier, building that wall, as you said. And now you have an inability to receive. And that's what was happening. I had built up that wall, so I wasn't receiving anything. I wasn't receiving anyone's attention. I wasn't receiving anyone's focus, all right? They were not thinking about me, basically. And that's the reason why, because I had already built up that wall with that limited belief that it repelled everything from me. Right, absolutely. So, I mean, it was such a great experience, because these are the things that happen in our everyday life. And like you said, it's about just finding that awareness and being able to have that self-talk to say, hey, wait a second, you're going off course here. Let's make that shift back. And we talked about that last week, you know, thinking about yourself as that plane and having to make constant shifts to get back in alignment with who you are, where you are, what your vision is, and where you're going in life.
Yeah, you know what I think actually there, I mean, again, I feel like whenever we speak, it's really good that we take notes, because I'm listening to you and it's like, boom, 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 gotta talk about this, gotta talk about this. But we're just gonna save it for the next time, because I do want to recap, and I want to give everybody some takeaways and how they can kind of like just literally let go of the ego. And that was another thing that I'd said in the text message is you just gotta let go. Like, let go. And that's easy for me to say, and it may be easy for you also to be like, yeah, I'm going to let go of it, you know, enough. We're going to let go of these things enough that we can just kind of like step back and observe and reflect a little bit. But I know for some people that's really, really hard. So a few things I heard you mention, and at first it started, I love that you talked about, right, that you're being disconnected. And again, when I hear you say, like, I'm putting the ego's up, the barrier's up, boom, all of a sudden nobody sees me. That's that armor that I'm talking about. And, you know, you watch the movie The Secret, and you read the book The Secret and how to manifest and all that stuff. Guys, it's not magic. It's like, we're going to talk about that. Maybe we could talk about vibration and stuff that you were just speaking about, and exactly what you're putting out there. So if we're to reel this in, and I do one day want to talk about limiting beliefs, because there's only like 3 or 4 of them. And I'll give you 2 right now. Mel gave you 1, I'm not good enough. And the other one is, if I try, I'll fail. And they're connected. They're totally connected, because if I try, I'm going to fail. And what if? Fear. Okay? So let's reel this in, and I'll give the 2 takeaways, right? You said when you start to hear yourself complaining, when you're going after goals, one of the things I noticed too is that, and I put it here and I highlighted it to make sure that it gets out there, is that when we have that image of ourselves, or we say, you know, I am this way, or like these branding activities that we have back here of who we are, those things are there because we want to speak those things into existence. We want to find that voice. And Tony Robbins would always say to us, you know, the human need to be consistent with who they identify themselves to be is like the strongest need ever. So if you tell yourself you're XYZ, or you're supposed to be a business mogul, or you're supposed to be like this, right? Or I'm supposed to be a quiet little chick that doesn't cuss and just has her place.
That's a no-go.
No, that's not gonna happen with me ever. But I identify with me being that loud mouth, all of it. If somebody told me to be another way, it would be like it would kill me.
No way, right.
We have that human need, but we also have that human need for love and connection. Right. And I think if we eliminate that need to be right, and like take away actions, tangible items that you can do right now, I would say like first step, just be the observer,
Yes.
right? So start with that self-inquiry, and Tony Robbins will tell us too, like say, isn't that interesting that I feel like I'm being completely ignored? In the moment, you're going to be like, fuck, I'm timing this shit, 15 minutes, and you're so heated. So let that be the first trigger that you notice your blood pressure is raising, you're getting twisted, you're irritated.
Exactly.
You're complaining, you feel irritated.
No tolerance.
Why? Just ask yourself why. Where does that come from? That's really interesting. Why am I irritated? Well, because this motherfucker right here isn't serving me.
Yep.
Step back and be the observer, right? So that's actually a tactic that Mel had used by retelling the situation and hearing somebody else's perspective. Yep. Why? Because when you're in your body and your ego and your identity, you can only see what you see. And it's pretty much like this. Yep. When your emotions are involved, you got those blinders on. So I would say, and you tell me if you agree with this, that's that first step is just to question, notice, I feel agitated, irritated, frustrated, whatever that is. You're not feeling good.
Right.
You're pissed.
Right, right.
And just start to notice, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
Absolutely. You know, and I think that's key for me. I notice and I document everything. And I start running a pattern through those events. You know, it's almost like, you know, you have these bullet points and you're starting to connect all the dots as to what is the main theme in all of these experiences and all these situations that are happening when I'm having that moment and I do step back and I'm now being aware and looking at it. Start documenting that so you can see what that pattern is. You know, I didn't believe in that for a while. I'm like, I'm not writing down a situation that happened. But the more that I started to do that and committed to figuring it out, it got so clear. Right, exactly. And documenting it just like, hey, just texting you. Yeah, something's not right. You know, something happened this weekend, so let's talk about it, okay? Because now, here it is, you're able to see it. And when you see something, be it on paper, be it on text message, on your computer screen, that thing is staring right back at you, and you're saying to yourself, why the heck did I react like that? What was going on? What pissed me off? What drove me to do that? Yeah, that was great that I left this guy a tip, but why the hell did I leave him that much of a tip? You know what I mean? And it makes you really sit down and have to see yourself, and it's really doing that mirror work. You know, holding that mirror up and looking at exactly who you are and why you did that, whatever it was, but yeah, documenting is huge. Having that awareness, one, that self-talk, but then documenting it.
You know, and that's the funny thing is, you know what I say about therapy. I mean, I think therapy is a privilege, and to be able to go and to have coaches, you know what I mean? I question, again, the term life coach, but an accountability partner, somebody to hold that mirror up for you. And there's two things that I want to say, and two things that I don't know if I want to necessarily go with tweetables, but I like calling them tweetables, but just stuff that you can share out there from this. And then at some point, I totally want a hashtag for us. 500% want a hashtag for us. But I think for me, the two things, this I have, and I've had this for years. This was a card that somebody gave to me, right? They wrote it for me, and I taped it and had it on my refrigerator. And now I put it in my, I don't know if it's backwards when you see it, but I put it in my office, right? And it says, be gentle with yourself. You're a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. And in the noisy confusion in the world, keep the peace in your soul. And I hope it's not backwards, but that just, I always say, just be gentle with yourself. Because a lot of times when we do that questioning process, we do say, why the hell did I do that?
Yeah.
And if there's one thing that I learned from Tony Robbins, it is ask a better quality of question to get a better quality of answer. So when you ask yourself, what the hell is wrong with me? Think of the type of answers you're going to get. Well, you know, you effed up here and you kind of messed up here and you got something going on with your hair and your nose and da-da-da-da. Yeah, that's my ego talking, being like, let me fix my hair. And, oh, God, my ears are so big, guys. And when I look like this, my nose, like,
yeah.
That's ego. So it's like, chill. You are the way you are. You're a child of the universe. You know, you're a child of the one great king. Whatever you want to call yourself, chill and go easy on yourself. Because if you're not your best friend, you're flipping screwed. Because you're stuck with yourself literally until the day that you die.
Right.
Literally. So you might as well be your BFF.
Yeah.
You can tweet that shit right there. You can tweet
your own BFF.
Yeah, be your own BFF because you're stuck with yourself literally until the day that you die. So go easy on you. Don't talk to yourself a way that you wouldn't speak to somebody that you love. And I'm not talking about family members because we have a tendency to abuse family members. Okay, verbally abuse family members because we take them for granted. And I'm just speaking from, you know, even my dad. My dad will call me and I'm like, Dad, I gotta go. It's like, damn, why am I abusing him? You know, but it's because they're not going anywhere because they love them. But hashtag guys, like, people can go. They can go. And we know this. Mel and I know this. And I think sometimes, you know, people who do go through pain, like that of losing something really important, do have a tendency to be a little bit more self-reflective and say, ooh, that hurts. You know, life kind of hurts sometimes. Why am I inflicting this pain on myself? Yeah. Let's explore that, you know? So I do think this is coming from a place of not wanting so much pain, but there's that. And then there's 2 books that I want to do. And one of the books is Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
I mean, The Power of Now. I couldn't read it, but I could listen to it. And I will tell you, I listened to that when I was like maybe 24. That shit saved my life.
Yeah.
Saved my brain. Okay, it saved my brain, my ego from going. And then I just realized like everything was an energy battle. And then there was another book, and you said it, The Mirror Work. And I haven't read it yet, but it's on my list. And it's by Louise Hay, Hay. And it's,
I have my cousin, she actually bought me a CD set of Louise Hay, and I mean, every single time in my car, that's all I listen to. Love it, love it, love it. You know, if you haven't ever heard of her, check her out. But yes, I completely agree with you. Those 2 books, The Power of Now, was something that someone referred to me as well. And just being present, sitting down, being present with yourself. And you're right, being gentle. You have to treat yourself like a precious gift. You have to treat yourself like a valuable gift. And so you really do have to be gentle. And, you know, I kind of exaggerated, like, oh, you know, what the heck is wrong with me? But that is so true. Just doing that, it's one of those things that you've got to kind of dial it down and say, okay, what happened in that situation? Where did that stem from? And like you said, it's all in the quality of those questions that you're asking. You're going to get a lot better responses. And that's what we've done with ourselves. You know, all this personal development work, it's just going through and asking question after question and really seeing it, being aware, documenting those things, and like you said, asking those questions. You know, reading up, finding out, okay, where's this coming from, and what can I do to change it? What can I do to add to it? What can I do to you know, just bring something better to the situation than what's happening. So yeah, I love those 2 recommendations.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the beauty of the network that we are, you know, a part of, and the little network that we've created, like our little community, which is not so little, but you're surrounding yourself with conscious beings, and it does make it easier. I mean, I had my best friend to go through this with me. Back in the day, and we would go to Barnes and Nobles and read all these books, and then, you know, my fiance went to the Tony Robbins with me, so it's like, to do it with a community and that accountability partner, like, you want to surround yourself with the people who are going in that direction of, for me, it's about feeling good. Yeah. So that's how I always judge is, you know, how does this feel? Right. And when something doesn't feel good, that's when you want to switch it up. And that it does. It takes time to learn and evolve. So we are done.
We are. I've got one last thing, and I just got to add this because if I don't, it's going to kill me.
Good.
So what's something that you just said? When you feel good, you'll notice your body is light. Okay, you'll feel all this pressure lifting off of you when you're present, when you're feeling good in those moments. And that's when I notice that, okay, change is happening. So whether it's ego, whatever it is that you're working on, that thing that's kind of knocking at you that week or that day or whatever the case is, when you're present and you have that moment and you start thinking through it, you start reading through it and growing through it, your body is going to feel so much lighter that you're going to realize I've just made a change. Take notice of that, and that's what I mean by document everything. Start connecting those dots, because that's what leads to that growth and development.
It's so good, but it's like you and I can go on and piggyback. I have to say though, it's the same thing with food.
Yeah.
Right? What foods do you eat, and how do they make you feel? You know, I'm a nutrition and a food junkie, so I know you, and you're a platey, but
Yeah.
think about that too, right? There's that reflective process of how does this food make me feel? How do I feel after I eat this? And it makes life easier when you're going according to how does this make me feel? And I'm not talking about getting all emotional about everything and everything's about feelings. No, but feelings are kind of like your EP, what is it? The GPS is your global positioning system.
Something
So
like
it's like the GPS for your life, your emotions.
Yeah. There you go.
Feel good. Let me go this way. And I'm not talking about drugs and rock and roll and sex and all that stuff.
Right.
I'm talking about how you show up in the world and what you put in your body.
Yeah.
And that's how we'll leave it with that. So we would love that if you guys made it this far into this talk. Well, clearly you were getting something from it. So I would just love to hear, you know, send one of us a message, comment below. If you're in the Powerhouse University or any part of Powerhouse, then by all means, like, we want to hear, what did you get out of this? What do you want next? What are you going to apply? And what our hashtags should be.
Exactly. I love that.
I speak in hashtags, so I want a hashtag for us. Okay.
Good stuff. Yeah,
All right, so let's go have fun with the rest of our night and do what we got to do because yes. Because yes. So I love you, Mel. You're awesome.
Love you too. All right. Love you guys.
Talk to you soon. Bye, guys.